Hello, everyone. The story depicts a very calm young man who goes to a new place to continue his studies, and his life takes a dramatic turn when he meets Janet, the beautiful girl he falls for, despite her being completely focused on her boyfriend Brad. In the first scene, Eddie tries to talk to Janet and get closer to her, which greatly upsets Brad, breaking his heart and ordering him to stay away from her completely. Eddie then accidentally breaks his glasses in front of his peers and is forced to sit alone in the back of the classroom, isolated from his classmates. He manages to fix his glasses and wears them again. Another character, Ash, a thrill-seeking guy deeply into skiing, sells drugs to his classmates for money. They are interrupted by their classmate Willow, a girl who behaves according to her mood, indifferent to everyone, and her biggest passion is movies. Mark, a loner who focuses intensely on his studies and feels out of place among his peers, catches Ash's attention, hoping he might buy something from him. Later, their teacher, Mrs. Rumble, arrives and Eddie talks to her, asking how long they will stay there and if this incident will affect their future records. It becomes apparent that they are all confined to a place serving some kind of punishment, each with a different reason. Suddenly, Ash notices that Mark is injured, as if someone has bitten his hand. He realizes the wound is severe and affecting Mark deeply. A few minutes later, Mark screams in pain, his hand swelling severely, his face changing, his eye turning white, and blood oozing from his mouth in a strange way. Mrs. Rumble tries to help him, but Mark attacks her suddenly, biting her neck. The students and other teachers rush to save her from Mark, subduing him and pushing him away. Mrs. Rumble faints, and it's discovered that her condition is very critical. They try to stop the bleeding by any means necessary, even using part of Janet's clothing to cover the wound. Brad goes outside to seek help and is shocked to find out that Mark is not the only one affected. There are many students like him outside. Willow realizes that they have turned into zombies, drawing from her experience in horror movies. Eddie suggests they all hide in one place and secure it properly. Mark gets up again and starts approaching them. They are forced to go outside again and flee quickly, realizing that the school is also turning into a zombie zone. Despite the danger, Eddie decides to take Janet with them because she makes it difficult for him to leave her behind. They encounter a large number of zombies on their way, making the situation very challenging. They reach the principal's office and try to use his mobile phone to call for help. The network falls completely, and they consider closing the doors tightly to protect themselves from the monsters as much as they can. Eddie is shocked when he enters the principal's bathroom and finds him dead inside, the place filled with blood. Brad gathers the rest of the group and agrees with them to stick together all the time to stay safe. Eddie suggests they hide in the library because it's always empty and devoid of students. They all agree on the idea and quietly exit, being very cautious. They see two zombies near the library door and quickly hide from them. Eddie tells them that the monsters won't focus on them if they act like them and won't even notice them. He decides to test it himself to convince them. When they see him succeed, they follow suit. Eddie manages to pass by the two zombies, terrified as they are seen eating one of their peers. Unfortunately, they make a noise while passing, attracting the zombies towards them. Eddie tries to help his friends by making a noise to distract the monsters. His friends enter the library easily at that moment. Eddie gets nervous when he sees all the zombies coming towards him and doesn't know how to act. He thinks of a crazy idea and is forced to do it because he can't find another solution. He quickly escapes among the zombies, trying to save himself by any means necessary. Willow is very happy that he managed to save himself and thanks him for helping them. They all enter the library and lock themselves in securely. They contemplate how to deal with their teacher, whose condition is worsening and starting to transform. Willow asks Janet to help stop the bleeding, and she goes to talk to Eddie to see if he can find a solution. Suddenly, their teacher's heart stops, and Janet tries to resuscitate her. Unfortunately, she turns into a zombie. Janet doesn't give up and tries to resuscitate her, getting closer to her. At that moment, Eddie rushes in and saves her. He prays that she understands his actions for her and loves him as he loves her. Eddie is distressed to see her with Brad after all that happened. They all gather around their teacher, trying to get her out to prevent anyone from getting hurt. By mistake, Brad touches her hand. Outside, they see a huge number of zombies and start worrying that this might be their fate eventually. When Brad sits alone, he realizes that he has been infected and feels devastated, but tries to hide it from the others. He acts normally around them as if nothing happened. Eddie and Willow warn everyone not to go outside, saying this is the safest place for them. But Brad thinks they need to find another solution because they might stay there for too long until they eventually die. They decide to split up and search different areas, hoping to find something useful. During this time, Jimmy's reading a book he likes, not realizing that the librarian standing behind him has turned into a zombie. Suddenly, there's a flicker in the electricity, the lights go out momentarily, and they hear someone screaming. They look around for anything they can use to fight off the zombies and protect Jimmy. They find nothing but books and start throwing them at the zombie, hoping it will have some effect. Jimmy ends up with a deep wound on his neck. Brad is heartbroken because Jimmy is his closest friend and tries to help him, but can't. Overwhelmed with anger, Brad grabs the rod again and hits the zombie woman violently to avenge his friend. They all calm down once they confirm she's dead. Then they face the difficult question of what to do about Jimmy, since he's about to turn into a zombie as well. Suddenly, Jimmy gets up and throws himself out the window, knowing his fate. A large number of zombies swarm him and devour him while his friends watch helplessly from above, unable to process what's happening. Brad sits alone in a corner, looking at his wound, and realizes the infection is spreading. He hides his hand again, trying not to show anything to his friends. Janet, on the other hand, becomes emotionally overwhelmed by the situation, crying and terrified at the thought of dying this way. Ash tries to lighten the mood, telling them he has plenty of goods and offers to share some for free to help them relax and stop overthinking. Willow agrees with the idea and helps him, but Eddie is the only one who refuses. He insists they need to stay alert to protect themselves at any moment. Under pressure, Eddie tries a small amount, but can't stand the taste or smell, which makes everyone laugh at him for being so different, always focused solely on studying. Eddie decides to do something different and enjoys the moment with them. Ash then asks them why they're here and why they're trapped. Janet explains that she was caught using drugs at her school, and this was her punishment. Eddie sympathizes with her and begins to share his own story, saying he was caught with a pillbox in his school bag. He admits that he was taking them to focus better on studying. Eddie explains that when he was caught, no one cared to understand him, and they decided to send him here as punishment. He talks about his dreams of getting into a prestigious university. They agree to work together wholeheartedly to survive until the end and ensure no one gets hurt. Suddenly, they hear a loud noise coming from behind the wall. They all rush to push the bookshelf, hoping there's a door behind it. To their shock, a zombie manages to break through the wooden wall and tries to grab Janet by force. She screams and begs for help, and Eddie runs to her rescue, hitting the zombie repeatedly until he frees her. This time, Janet treats him kindly and thanks him for always being there for her. Before Eddie's joy can last, another zombie reaches him and tries to pull him forcibly. Janet and Willow are forced to sever the zombie's arm with a table they have and bravely rush to save Eddie together. They all take a moment to rest after the horrific incident. When they peek through the broken wood, they see that the situation outside is dire, with nearly everyone turned into zombies. Willow tries to get closer to Eddie, talking to him for a long time. Despite this, she realizes he isn't paying attention to her at all. His focus is entirely on Janet. She asks him why everyone seems to like Janet so much, and why no one thinks of being with her instead. From their conversation, she understands that Eddie doesn't really like Janet. He's just drawn to the fact that she's popular and pretty, and being with her would make everyone want to talk to him. Willow convinces him that his thinking is shallow and that he shouldn't care about such trivial things. After a while, Eddie begins to see something different in Willow and starts paying more attention to her, realizing she's genuinely smart and beautiful. He promises her that if he survives and gets out of there alive, he'll take her out on a proper date. Willow feels thrilled and starts hoping they might end up together. Suddenly, Ash says he can't hold it anymore and needs to use the bathroom. Willow thinks of a way to get him out and back in without using the door. She finds the air vent and manages to open it, seeing that it's wide enough for anyone to crawl through. Everyone agrees to leave except Janet, who's too scared and refuses to leave the library. She asks Brad to stay with her, but since he's infected, he decides it's better to leave to avoid hurting her. Willow is surprised when Eddie also refuses to leave, and stays with Janet, which makes Willow upset with him. Eddie stays alone with Janet and starts talking to her a lot for the first time. After a while, he realizes they have nothing in common and their thinking is worlds apart. Willow reaches the end of the vent and hears something moving in the pipes, which terrifies her. She tries to go back but bumps into her friends. Their combined weight causes the vent to break, and they all fall to the ground. Luckily for them, there are no zombies in that area. They quickly get up and think about where to go next. Ash insists on retrieving his bag from the vent before leaving and asks Brad to help him. Unfortunately, they encounter a mutated rat that attacks Ash and infects him too. His friends are horrified to find half of his body eaten, leaving only his leg intact. The noise attracts the zombies, who quickly reach their location. Willow and Brad take advantage of the moment, grabbing Ash's leg and using it as a shield to protect themselves. Janet continues her conversation with Eddie, surprised that he doesn't seem interested in getting closer to her. Eddie advises her to change her personality and openly shares how he really sees her. He talks freely, thinking that it's the end of the world, and he could die at any moment. Meanwhile, Willow and Brad arrive and knock on the door, asking for help. Eddie takes a risk to help them, rushing to open the door. Eventually, they manage to get inside safely, but they all realize they're in big trouble. Every zombie now knows their location. The zombies attack the door in massive numbers, and it's only a matter of time before they break through. Janet pulls Eddie aside, insisting on talking to him alone. Meanwhile, Willow stays with Brad, unaware that he's already turning into a zombie. Brad starts removing objects blocking the door, trying to find a way out. Willow notices his strange behavior, and despite her sadness over Eddie, goes to alert the others. She tells them that Brad is acting oddly and looks like he's transforming as well. They are shocked by Brad's terrifying appearance, and Janet tries to stop him, shutting the door quickly. But he attacks her, and she screams, begging him to back off, not wanting to hurt him. Eddie and Willow encourage her to fight back before it's too late. In the end, Janet listens to them, gathers her courage, and hits Brad on the head. She grabs a large wooden plank and throws him out the window, getting rid of him. She then helps Eddie and Willow reinforce the door. Despite their efforts, they realize they can't keep the door closed for long, and their lives are still in danger. Eddie tries to think of a solution and spots Ash's skateboard nearby. The three of them get on it, taking the teacher's head with them as a weapon, and head outside to bravely face the zombies. They fight off anyone in their way and manage well until they reach the stairs, where they all fall. Suddenly, they encounter Jimmy, who attacks them after his transformation. Brad appears as well, and everything spirals out of control. Willow manages to save herself, grabbing a sharp tool and striking Jimmy until she kills him. She also rescues Eddie from death. The two of them rush to help Janet, striking Brad in the neck until he dies, pulling her away from his grasp. They're horrified to find a massive number of zombies surrounding the school, and to make matters worse, their ammunition is running out. They decide to flee, heading toward the gym to escape through its exit and reach the roof. But when they get there, they find the roof door locked and try desperately to open it. Eddie realizes they're running out of time and decides to face the approaching zombies alone to protect the girls. He asks them to run while he holds them off. Before they leave, Eddie confesses to Willow that he truly admires her and wishes he could be with someone like her. Willow begs him to follow them and reminds him of his promise to her. Willow bids Eddie farewell, takes the weapon, and leaves. Eddie uses a baseball bat to fend off numerous zombies, taking down as many as he can. By chance, he finds some pencils scattered on the ground and cleverly uses them to stab the zombies in the head. He manages to grab a sharp weapon from one of the zombies, using it to finish off the rest. Suddenly, he hears someone screaming in the gym. Worried about the girls, he rushes to check on them. He discovers that Janet has been bitten by a zombie while trying to climb the stairs to the roof. Willow quickly manages to fend off the creature using her weapon, pulling Janet to safety and helping her make it to the roof. The group realizes that Janet's transformation is inevitable. They check their remaining supplies and find they have only one bullet left. Janet begs Willow to use the bullet to end her suffering before she turns. Just as Willow prepares to do so, Eddie arrives and rushes to her, asking her to use the bullet on the zombie chasing him instead. Willow shoots the last bullet, taking down the zombie. Moments later, Brad reaches their location, and they find themselves surrounded by zombies on all sides. Trapped and unsure of what to do, Janet, feeling deeply for her friends, decides to sacrifice herself. Knowing she's doomed anyway, she runs toward Brad, grabbing him and jumping off the roof with him. Willow and Eddie sit on the ground, overwhelmed with grief over Janet's selfless sacrifice. They reflect on her bravery and feel deeply saddened by her fate. Suddenly, military vehicles arrive, filling the area. Soldiers use heavy artillery to wipe out all the zombies. Eddie and Willow are rescued, realizing they're the only survivors from the entire school. As they prepare to leave and think it's all finally over, Janet unexpectedly reappears, now fully transformed. She bites Eddie in a split second, and his screams echo in the chaos. The film ends without revealing whether Eddie has been infected or what his ultimate fate will be. Goodbye,